Hello, hello, hello. Um, right. So, I've just been sort of giving some thought to this idea of governance that actually was not, as with many things, the obsessive compulsive or perfectionist in me, keeps thinking, oh no, that is not yet, it's not yet ready. Do not communicate that idea, just yet. Um, but you know, in light of, I suppose, just what has recently happened, most likely most people are going to be watching this on a replay as opposed to live. I am actually recording it live right now, and and I suppose some people might be watching it, way into the future, and might be like, "What the hell is he going on about? What events have just occurred?" If that's you, then in that case, just look up. It's January 2021, and crazy stuff. And just sort of thinking about that, one of the things that sort of occurred to me was like, you know what, actually, when you think of at the core what the issue is here, it's actually I suppose an issue with governance and communication, because core to governance is communication, right? And so I was just sort of thinking to myself, like, what is it that I feel deeply about, or what do people feel deeply, even if it's it's a small audience, feel deeply about, that can be able to actually make a difference. And the more I thought about it, it was just it's crypto, the sort of cryptographic nature of what is enabled, from a communication standpoint, to a collaboration standpoint, to a compensation, right? So like this little triangle, and just what can actually come from that, I think it solves a lot of the sort of the problems and the strife that is currently sort of plaguing us. And now more than ever, actually, if you think about it, humans, since our sort of caveman days, we have evolved by leaps and bounds, but every now and then we have got to a point where we have advanced, we've developed a whole bunch of tools and languages and technologies that and then we've got to a point where we've just sort of, in a way, lost it, or sort of destroyed ourselves, not annihilated ourselves, like made ourselves extinct, at least not just yet, but we're, with the capabilities that we are continually able to achieve, we're getting to a point where the probability of something happening is actually quite of some sort of extinction event is actually quite high. And one of the best ways to actually mitigate this is to have proper governance, basically, or simply put, a way for us to just simply get along, right? Crypto is fundamentally quite, in a way, individualistic, right? Quite libertarian. But there is that saying, no man's an island. And for us to actually exist, we have to coexist, right? So we have to figure out a way, even with as minimal government or governance, preferably, as we sort of strive for, we still need a way to basically get along together, right? And so one of the things I want to do with this governance program here on Cast is really engage with the community and have some really interesting conversations, and explore a whole bunch of stuff, especially sort of like stuff which already works, right? I find what's usually quite helpful to do whenever you're trying to solve some problem that's somewhat novel, is look towards the the analog equivalence. And in the context of governance, one of the things is, if you think about like what in sort of the legacy analog world, what's a way that humans have found to have a person from a particular native environment be a representative in a foreign environment, right? And that person, and then and the opposite, I suppose, right? So someone who's native to what is foreign to that person who went over, is native, right? But then the other side is foreign to them. And so basically you have representatives. And this is basically, the idea behind embassies or chancelleries and diplomats, right? So I feel like, one of the issues that we still need to solve within crypto and within Cardano, especially as we solve are getting to this point where we're starting to roll out governance, and the mainnet is gradually sort of handing over from the sort of centralized environment to the decentralized. Governance is gonna be really fundamental, and so one of the things I'm actually quite looking forward to is exploring just these ideas and having conversations, right? Because again, as I said earlier, what's fundamental to governance is this idea of communication. That's not really an idea. It's the practicalities of communication. And from the beginning, the idea behind CAST has been to be this high bandwidth, low latency environment for us as a community to really connect with each other and to just to reach out across the aisle, I suppose, so to speak, and connect connect with each other. So and if we do this right, one of the things that really gives me hope personally, whenever I sort of pull an all-nighter or just get up in the morning, one of the things that gives me hope is the promise of crypto, right? The promise of crypto, I feel like it represents this idea of living in a more trusting sort of a more trusting environment and sort of a safer society where majority of folks wake up with a purpose as opposed to just living a really miserable life. So even now, as we're going through these really difficult times, I find myself thinking it would suck, if I did not know crypto and sort of be part of it. From a monetary standpoint, I'll be anxious, AF, and just from a sort of like existential standpoint, like, oh man, like these governance structures are really unreliable, I can't trust them, etc. So that's quite grim, or quite bleak. So I'm really lucky that I count myself as lucky, being able to actually have that hope, right? And so whenever all that I do whenever I get up in the morning, or whenever I wake up, is to actually to remember, okay, there are folks out there who in a tricky place, get up and do this, be able to be a bit of light out in the world. And so and actually as somewhat of a reference, I find myself thinking back to the time that I spent in Japan, where it's really quite a safe environment, or safe society. Tokyo is very different to London in that respect, and it's in a way kind of like traveling forward in time, where you kind of get to experience what life would be like, you know, I suppose kind of like hypothetically, right? If we live in a not really a utopia, but I suppose just simply a place where there's no pointless suffering. So, you know, suffering's good, but pointless suffering is, you know, and a lot of people, I feel, you know, kind of go through that. So living in an environment where it's, you know, a lot, you know, a lot safer, you know, a safer society, you know, I feel like, you know, we'll get to a point where, you know, again, the Japanese concept of ikigai, right, where you've got your purpose, right, what you like to do, what you're good at doing, what you get paid to do, and what society needs, all, you know, all these things just sort of find this lovely, harmonious sort of flow, right, or sort of harmony, basically. Yeah, and you know, and again, I don't want to kind of be misunderstood in what I'm trying to communicate here. Such a world is not a world without suffering or without struggle, right? Because those things are important. It's those are present. What I'm saying is, you know, the pointless aspects, or the pointless extent, shall I say? So yeah, so if any of this sort of resounds or sort of rings true to you, and sort of how you see the world, or how you think about the world, and how you hope it to be in the future, like yeah, come and join this tiny but mighty and growing community, you know, this cast of misfits, this cast of truth seekers, of vector tweakers, of tab-y spaces, right, that odd thing, right? So yeah, and I suppose in closing, like you know, this whole list basically sort of like represents ideas, you know, of the kind of folks that we need, right, within crypto, right? Because if you think of it, like, for example, you know, Satoshi did not create what he created from just being a purely logical thinking mind, right? He was equally as sort of creative, or sort of, you know, as much a left brain as he was right brained, kind of thing. And it was this divergent way of thinking that really, you know, helped him figure out how to properly, you know, design the incentive scheme, and, you know, just to figure out the whole game theoretic aspect of the wonderful creation which has led us down this particular road, right? So, you know, I feel like, yeah, we are at the edge of something that's fundamentally transformative, and yeah, I suppose yeah, governance is super important, you know. And I would like to, yeah, just say that I'm looking forward to just like communicating, you know, having, you know, really spirited debates, and sort of, you know, engaging in philosophical ideas, but also, you know, pragmatic, you know, not just a dialectic aspect, like, you know, practical, pragmatic stuff regarding governance. And obviously, you know, there are other programs, but this particular one, you know, has to do with governance. And yeah, and so I suppose, yeah, in closing, you know, one thing that I like to kind of remind anyone who watches these videos is the inspiration here is, you know, this idea that I like to think of which is time is money. You know, we all sort of, you know this idea, or this proverb, phrase, whatever you want to call it. Time is money. Trust is wealth, right? So these two things are fundamental to crypto, right? The notion of money, the notion of trust, right? So yeah, so make time and build trust, and yeah, let's just make the world that, you know, we actually want to live in, as opposed to just I don't know, waiting for someone else to do it, I suppose. Yeah, so that's been it. Governance, delegative democracy, or liquid democracy. Yeah, hope this was informative. Yeah, I just wanted to quickly share my thoughts on this dark and cold London Friday morning. Yeah, I hope this finds you well. I hope to speak to you soon. Cheers.